ask you this question. Have you ever had that time in your business where things just slow down? I don't mean COVID. I mean like regular business cycle, like everything's coming along and then nothing. And you're like, oh, did I mess something up? And what if I told you that's not just you, but every business goes through it? What if I also told you there's something you ought to be doing when business is slow like that? I mean, there's actual things you should be doing when business is slow. And I found a business expert who's going to help you to figure out what that is. Stay tuned. I am J Loren Norris with Storypower TV. So glad you are here. Today we have in studio with us a young lady by the name of Cheree Sauer. Cheree is an expert in helping people understand the cycles of their business and what they ought to be doing when business is slow. So help me welcome Cheree. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Now, I was really intrigued the first time I heard you talk about this idea of the cycles of business. And you threw out this phrase, the ramp method. And I was like, immediately I think of onboarding. I think of new business. I think of launching something. I think of, Evel Knievel, the ramp, get it off the ground. And yet the first thing you talked about in ramp wasn't activity. It wasn't start. It wasn't get going. It was slow down. Yeah. So tell me about this ramp method. What do you do when business slows down, and where did you come up with this concept?
Yeah. Oh, such great questions. So first of all, I came up with it because I have a master's degree in sports psychology. I worked with high performing athletes as an athletic trainer for 14 years. And during that career, I experienced burnout, as most healthcare providers do. I took a leap of faith. I became a stay-at-home mom, and I experienced burnout again after about 4 months. And then I started a business, and I became a business owner.
Because you didn't need more stress in your life. I don't have enough stress. I'll have kids and a home, and start a business.
Yeah. I wasn't fulfilled as a stay-at-home mom, to be honest. I was a high achiever, and I was used to performing and checking things off the to-do list, and I couldn't check my kids off the list.
They're never done.
They're never done. They cry, and you can't make them stop, and it is what it is. And
ours are in their 20s. That hasn't changed.
You're supposed to give me hope here. Yeah, I started a business, self-care gift box company, and I thought that, once I hit this certain level, then I would be happy and fulfilled, and I could make my own schedule, and I'd have my time freedom. But the reality was I didn't know how to be present in my life as a mom and also be present in my business. I felt like I was always on and always performing. And so after experiencing burnout for the third time, I realized that something needed to change, and I was tired of being a victim to my circumstances, and I decided to do something about it. And I remember working with high performing athletes and teams, and the ones that were the most successful were the ones who had the right coach, the right skill set, the right mindset, and the right rest to performance ratio.
The right what?
The right rest to performance ratio.
Rest to performance ratio.
Yep.
Okay. What is that?
Yep. So to give you an example, the earth has seasons, right? There's a winter season where the ground rests, and then we have a time for planting, and we have a time for harvesting.
You haven't been in Texas much, have you? We have like one season, and it's hot, then it rains, and it's hot.
I live in the 4 seasons. So. And
the earth rests.
Yeah, earth
and
rests.
We're
supposed to rest. Our business and our body needs rest as well. And just like sports have seasons of rest and peak performance, in sports, they have a rest season, a preseason, an in-season, and a post or peak season. So the peak season is your March Madness. You're going for the Olympic gold medal. That's the busiest season. That's the playoffs. That's what it's all for, right? But it's a gradual ramp up to that. And in business, what I found is that it's so gradual.
On the opening night of the NFL.
Right. There has to be a progression up there, and mixed with that, there needs to be rest. And if there's not enough rest, then the athletes either get injured or burnt out. And the same thing happens in business. And in business, I was always on, whether I was in my business performing or I was at home, I was performing, right? And this is what I find for women especially is there's no downtime. Even if you go on vacation, and this isn't just women, this is men too. Even if you go on vacation, it's hard to unplug as a business owner. It's hard to sleep sometimes. And
sometimes you go on vacation and you're so exhausted, you got to come back and rest.
Yeah, or you come back to 1,000 emails, and so your brain never really learns how to shut off. And so how do we take advantage of this periodization method that has been used in the sports world for over 60 years to create Olympic gold medalists? How do we use the same model and apply that to business? And I find that most business owners, they're high achievers, they're high performers. We don't know how to rest. I didn't know how to rest. I was really good at achieving. I knew how to do that. I knew how to work hard and I knew how to hustle. I didn't know how to rest.
Now, when you say rest, you're not just talking about like all the major NFL quarterbacks, they have contracts with Sleep Number Bed. Hey, I get a good night's rest so I can
Right.
play better. I try to get a good night's rest, and sometimes I wake up more tired than I went to bed.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of rest you're
No.
talking about, though. What are you
No.
talking about?
And that's a part of it, right? That's one piece of it. But I mean mental, emotional, physical, spiritual rest, and also rest within your business. So when we say rest in a business, it doesn't mean that they're going to shut their business down and do nothing. It means that every business, every industry has normal ebbs and flows, right? Busy seasons and slow seasons. And so in the slow seasons, instead of pushing harder to try and get clients when people are not in a buying mindset, whether it's a product-based business or a client business, people are in certain buying mindsets, right? So I work with a lot of insurance agency owners, and personal lines insurance, their busy season is in the spring and the summer because people are buying boats and cars and houses. And
Right.
then in the wintertime, people are not in the buying mindset. So instead of pushing to get more people when they're not in the buying mindset, what if we were to take advantage of that slow season and be intentional about how we're using that slow season, having fun, enjoying life, spending time with your family, self-care, putting time and
What
energy
comes to
back into
mind for me
yourself.
when you say that, though? I think of Joseph and Seven Skinny Cows.
Yeah,
Because when there were fat cows, there was a right thing to do. And when there were skinny cows, there was a right thing to do.
yep,
And if he hadn't taken advantage of the fat cows, when the skinny cows came, they would have all died.
yep. Yeah, that's
So
a great analogy.
there's a lot of business. Our business is this way. And, in the speaking world, in the AV world, in the entertainment world, there are like April and May is overwhelming sometimes. That's when everybody wants to travel. It's when everybody wants to be on the stage. It's when everybody wants to get married. All these AV events are just packed for April and May. June, July, and August in Texas, it's just too hot.
Yeah,
And so we see $20,000 months and $20 months. And that ebb and flow sometimes can kill you because you're just paying off all the bills from the last time that it was skinny cows. And now you're looking at your fat cows going, they're not fat enough
yeah,
because there's another skinny cow season coming.
yeah.
So when we talk about strategies, like you said, take vacation, let your mind rest, etc. What are some of the things specifically that a small business owner, especially like a mom, whether a single mom or a stay-at-home mom would,
Mhm.
if you're trying to run a business too, what are some of the very tactical things they can do to rest effectively?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for this is self-awareness,
Okay.
honestly. People, self-care is this big buzzword, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna go get a massage every month, or I'm gonna go get my nails done, or whatever that is. Great. Those are those are all great things if it's what your body actually needs. And so a lot of what I teach people how to do is how to manage their energy. And I find that most business owners, their energy is mismanaged. And it's because they start a business and they have to wear all the hats. And
Now, you're not talking
eventually,
about their power and lights. You're talking about personal, emotional, and physical energy.
all of it, all of
Okay.
it, right? So if we're thinking about from a business perspective, taking it and reassessing what worked well and what didn't work well. What is draining in your energy and what gives you energy, and how do we manage your energy in a way that is going to fuel you into that busy season? How do you know what to outsource, automate, delegate? That's where the true rest comes in, because if you get stuck in the busyness of trying to keep up with all the things and you don't really know where your zone of genius is, then you just are in this vicious cycle of exhaustion and performance and never being able to come out of it. And so part of it is having self-awareness. So even down to a lot of the business owners I work with, they have team members and they have employees, and they don't know how to manage people. They don't know how to motivate people. And so one of their biggest energy drainers is managing people. And so that's one thing you can take off your plate. It could be taking social media off your plate. And so to truly rest, you have to understand where to spend your time and your energy that's going to be the most profitable for you and the most productive and allow you to truly be able to rest, because
So
that's
it
really what it comes down to.
almost sounds like a KPI kind of analysis,
Mhm.
but it's also, is there a Pareto principle in application there between the balance of what I do with my time, prioritization, and what I delegate,
Yep.
uh, passing it on to other people? Do you see is there a balance, or is it a Pareto principle? Is it just a lack of strategy that causes people to get caught up in that?
I think it's a combination of all of the above. People think about work-life balance as a 50-50. So the assumption is we spend 50% of our time at work and 50% just living life. And this 3-to-1 ratio is more realistic because we can't keep a 50-50, right? It's more about learning how to take advantage of, not only to just take advantage of the seasons, giving yourself I talk about the ramp method, working in your day, your week, your month, and your year. But if we look at a year, how do we look at your normal industry, the normal ebbs and flows of your industry, and give whether it's a couple months at a time or a month at a time, how do we assign it and say, this is what our intention is for our team, for our business, for our life in this season? And what do we need to do to be able to access that? So if this is our rest season, what do we need to do? What do we need to be outsourcing, automating, delegating to have more rest in the season, not pushing? And then, so RAMP, I didn't explain this, but RAMP is an acronym. It stands for Rest, Align, Master, Peak. So the align season, it's not slow. It's not super slow, but it's not busy. It's just kind of there. It's kind of in the middle. And when you can get in alignment with your values and your priorities, like you were just saying, then we know what to say yes to and what to say no to. And I find that a lot of business owners, they're just saying yes to everything. They get invited to networking. They're like, yes, I get invited to this. Yes. And I need to be doing this. And yes. And it's like, yes, all those things are good. Doesn't mean they're good in this season right now. And so what is our intention in this season? And how do we create a framework and a strategy around that? Once you understand what your values and your priorities are for yourself, for your family, for your business, for your team, then you can make decisions on what to outsource, automate, delegate. The master season, this is starting to ramp up to be busier, but it's not your busiest season yet. And this is where it's really important. And this happens in sports in the competition phase, the intensity has increased. Their time that they're spending has decreased because they don't have as much time, but it's more about the mental focus and the mindset in that
So is this
season.
preseason or is this mid-season?
So this would be considered the competition. So rest means, if we're talking sports analogy, rest means there's no organized activity. They're off on their own. It's summertime. They
Right.
are out.
They're all checked out.
They're still shooting hoops, swimming in the water, right? They're doing their activity. They're still lifting, but it's at a lower
Minimum
intensity.
maintenance.
It's very minimal maintenance.
Okay.
And then as we move into the align season, that would be considered preseason. So
that's where you're doing your draft. That's when you're running a combine. You're deciding
Yep.
who's going to make the team and who's not going to be the team, who's going to get cut on the roster.
Yeah, and
Put them under the
even the
pressure to see if they perform.
preseason, the team is formed, the team, and that's where the team building becomes really important, because in order to be successful, you have to have a team that works together. And how can you have a team that works together and learn to motivate individual athletes, working on skills and building up the skills that they're going to need to move into that competition season. So this is the basic foundations of, shooting free throws and learning plays, and that's the
So in
preseason.
business, is that in that season when you look at somebody and go, okay, well, you came to me with this resume, and because of that resume, we put you in this job. But over the last 3 months, we've realized that you might be better suited in this job
Yeah.
or in another company.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be in the align phase, not in the rest phase.
100%.
And what happens to your organization when you try to do that kind of alignment, if you will, in the mastery phase?
So it doesn't have to be necessarily like so strict. It's more about just intention of just knowing what are you wanting to do and accomplish and what's realistic for what you can do and accomplish in the season. And so it doesn't have to be, there can be flow, and there can be multiple rest seasons and multiple peak seasons and multiple line seasons. There's no cookie cutter approach. It totally depends on the industry. It depends on the CEO and the team members and what they're wanting. But you have to have the foundational skills and really understand, what do you want? What do you want to create for your life and for your business? And how do we work backwards to create that? And then the moving into the competition phase. So in sports, this is the equivalent of like you're in season, right? So preseason, you're playing pickup games and they're not super important, but you're just learning how to play together.
Yeah.
And then in the master phase, this is the competition. This is what you've been building up for.
This is how we decide who goes to the playoffs and who doesn't.
Yeah. And this is where mindset becomes so, so important, because you've learned all the skills, you have it all down, but now.
Yeah, if you didn't master the skill, you didn't make the team.
Yep.
But now you're on the team. We've got to know, can you play as a team player? Can you invest in other people? Will you make the sacrifices necessary?
Yeah. Yeah. And the biggest with mindset, I find, for owners is they get stuck in the, oh, well, I'm really good at social media, so why would I outsource it? Right. And
Right.
Oh, well, I'm really good at this. And so let's talk about, what is the return on investment? Right. So it's learning, where do you want to spend your energy? Where is it going to be the most profitable and productive for you to spend your energy? And then how do we really master that and master your calendar? And I find for women specifically, and I don't know men, so you can speak to this on your end, but for women, they say yes, and they become very head led. So out of fear, guilt, people pleasing, that's how they make their decisions, whether it's with employee interactions or saying yes to a networking meeting or whatever it is.
Or yes to the 13th soccer game this month, and
yes,
let's pick up another. Let's also do tennis. And
yeah,
we should also add gymnastics and swimming.
Yeah, add all the things in. And so as you the master phase, I think they're all important. They're all important, but really having that and everything else before that, before you move into that busy season, because most business owners, they get in the busy season and they're already busy. They're already exhausted and burnt out because they've been pushing. And now they have to take on even more clients. They have more workload. And so if you don't have the right things outsourced, automated, delegated, then you're just bobbing, right? You feel like you're barely keeping your head above water.
But you can't butcher them all fast enough.
Yes. Yeah. And so how do we get you efficient enough so that you can get into that busy season? And when you're there, you get to take care of your clients and yourself really well. And you know exactly.
But if you don't have systems, that lead gen opportunity comes and you don't know how to process them.
Yeah.
Or they come into the lead gen system, but you don't have a customer journey to filter them through from lead to transactional client base.
Yeah.
Or they get into the client base, but you don't have enough service personnel to take good care of them. So if it's not you doing it and you doing social media and you managing the customer journey, then you run into a new client potential, but you can't get them to the delivery point where they're receiving everything you promised, because you need 12 people to do that, and only one of you available.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when your organization comes into another organization and your team is working with them, when do you want to start with them? Would you rather start in the rest phase, the align phase, the mastery phase, or that peak performance phase?
Yeah.
Or do you look at it and go, I don't care where we're starting. The first thing is to assess A, your end goals, and B, where you are.
Yeah.
And do you even know what phase you're in right now?
That's a great question. So ideally, yes, we would like to start in the rest phase because they have the time and capacity, right? However, the time is when the time is right. And so usually it's those
when the student is ready.
When the student is ready and they're just done. They're like, I can't continue on like this anymore. I just can't. And I'll get a lot of people that will come to me and they're like, oh, I just have too much going on in my life, right? And I'm like, and that's why you need coaching. And usually they'll come back a couple months later and they'll be like, no, I can't. They'll put it off and they'll come back a couple months later.
I can't because we're broke. Well, why are you broke? Because you're in the rest phase.
Yeah.
Your business is on the downslide. And that doesn't mean it's falling apart or you're closing the doors. It just means now's the time you should be catching your breath so you can take off running again.
Yeah.
And you're probably finding yourself financially strapped. So you're not, quote, prepared to invest in being ready when the fat cows show up again.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of times for a lot of the clients I work with, it's not even a money issue. That's really not a money, it's a time issue.
Time's a bigger resource.
They feel so tapped out that even adding 1 hour of coaching a week feels like too much. And so usually they'll come down a couple months later and they're like, okay, I'm done and
You
I'm
must be
ready.
really efficient if you can do it in 1 hour, because it usually takes me 2 hours just to get people to warm up in their coaching session.
I am very efficient.
So what is your ideal client? I know you've done a lot of work in the past with top performing athletes, with elite performers, and especially women in industry, with insurance. What other, if you were expanding your business at this point to say, you know what, those of you that are watching, you'd be my ideal client if,
Overwhelmed, exhausted, fatigued, have unexplained health issues, whether you are a business owner or you work in corporate America, if you are feeling like you're just done and you don't know what else to do and you feel stuck, that's the person we're willing to work. Whether you're a female or a male, you're feeling burnout, you feel like I just want my time freedom back, or I just want to feel fulfilled. And I find that with a lot of business owners because they're high achievers, they're high performers, and it's that once I get to this level, then I will take care of myself. Then I'll feel fulfilled. And they get there and they get to that point, and it's like, it's it's not here. I've reached all of my goals. I've hit everything I've ever tried to go for. And what is wrong with me? And why do I feel like this?
yeah, I remember hearing you talk about an analogy of strawberry soda. What in the world does that have to do with grant method?
Yes. When I was 13 years old, a friend and I had a brilliant idea to shake up a can of strawberry soda, puncture a hole in it, and try and drink it as fast as we could. And the pressure that built up as soon as we punctured the hole, it exploded and sprayed everywhere. And the pressure that built up in that can is just like the pressure that builds up in women when they try to juggle it all without the right resources.
Wow. So you find some people put themselves under pressure unintentionally?
Yeah, not even realizing. So for me, it was my perfectionism that was keeping me under pressure because everything had to be perfect, which meant I wasn't willing to surrender and release control, whether that was in my house or that was in my business.
Right. And you kind of sacrificed everything for that at various stages. I mean, you went back to school, got your master's degree, still coaching, still working with elite performers. Now you're parenting. Now you're running a business. It was like you didn't want one strawberry soda can, you wanted a 6-pack.
Yeah.
Let's just shake them all up
Yeah.
at the same time and
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah.
So, what does all that have to do with spirituality? Where does that fit in this Christian world of business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I truly believe, I think our methods work for anybody, but the people who are to truly have success without sacrifice, that comes through surrender to Holy Spirit. I believe that 100%. That's what needed to happen in my life. When I hit my lowest of my low, when I was a stay-at-home mom, I was like, God, I can't anymore. It's that I had to hit that rock bottom and allow God to come in and help propel me forward because I just couldn't do it on my own. And part of that allowing Holy Spirit in is it's teaching you to surrender. And as a high achiever, I find that is the hardest thing. And it's a journey that God has worked on in me personally. And I find that it's one for a lot of clients. And I find that the clients who have the most success in my program are the ones that they may not identify as Christian, they maybe have faith, they might be questioning, they're not really sure, but they're open to what that looks like in their life. And I teach a spiritual self-care module, and it's the fruits of the spirit. It's like, for me, I just remember when I was a stay-at-home mom, I was like, I just want peace and joy. I just, God, you promised this, and I just want peace. Like, you promise this, so how can I get it? And you have to decide first that you want it, whether it's fulfillment or time freedom, whatever it is that you're looking for. You have to first make the decision, You have to have the desire, you have to make the decision that this is where I want to go. And then you devise a plan of action how to get there, and then you delegate it to God. And it's that delegation to God that's he knows the desires of our heart. And if we allow him to direct our steps, then we don't have to be in hustle anymore.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody say delegate to God, but it does make sense. I mean, that's the next level of stewardship, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give God the 10%. I mean, it was his in the first place, but I'm going to give it back to him. I'm going to delegate to him those things that are his to begin with,
Yeah.
the time, the talent, the treasure, and the attention. So have you ever crafted or considered crafting a ramp method for discipleship?
Oh, no.
Because I can see how someone learning the faith, learning to walk as a new believer, the Sabbath rest,
Yeah.
most of us really suck at that.
Yeah.
I mean, we are really bad at just laying aside a day and going, okay, this belongs to God.
Yeah.
For on this day, I will do nothing that looks like work. I will focus only on what God has to say to me. And most of us are just horrible at it.
I personally, I couldn't do a day, but I could do 15 minutes, right? It was starting small with what I could do, and then it was gradually increasing from there. And so it's the baby steps. It doesn't have to be, I'm an all or none kind of person. That's
Right.
my personality. And so I had to learn just baby steps, just do what I could do and be consistent in that, instead of, because otherwise I would set a goal and then I would just feel like a failure and
As a
frustrated.
leadership coach, we even go beyond that, right? You want to find as many small wins as you can get.
Yeah.
Stack up the wins, even if they're not enormous wins. Just get a win, and then get a bunch of wins, and then get more wins, and then stretch that goal. Like you said, you can set the goal, but there's nothing more self-defeating than failing at a goal that you set for
Yeah.
yourself. You're like, oh, I set the goal too high, and then they tell smart goals, manageable, achievable, reachable, all these other, and you're like, well, what's a stretch goal then?
Yeah.
What's the point of these goals that really big, hairy, audacious goals cause you to do something new? And in discipleship, we get pulled on either side of that. It's either read the Bible through in a year, or you study this one book for the next 6 years.
Right.
And you're like, well, I got to figure out which one of those is going to work for my schedule, for my time. You're like, no, let's just try resting.
Yeah.
Just have a day of worship.
Yeah.
Spend some time where you're not focused on everybody else. It's just between you and God.
Yeah.
And here's an odd one. Listen.
Yeah.
just listen.
Yeah. That was a really hard one for me too. That was a real challenge for me. I was the pray on the go, pray in the shower, pray in the car.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to sit down and pray.
Yeah, pray without ceasing.
Yeah.
It means never stop.
Yeah.
Pray little, but pray it all the time.
Yeah. It was hard for me just to sit and be still. It's part of that surrender too,
Yep.
right? Like not the doing. The doing's easy.
Be still and
being
know that
still
I am
is
God.
hard. Yeah.
It's a fascinating phrase.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to your next book, Ramp Method for Discipleship. I will look forward to seeing that. Now, if people were to say our organization could really use some help with this strategy for your team to come in and do an analysis, figure out what season they're in and what needs to be done next, and what are the strategies they should be employing in the season they're in, how do they reach you to do that? Is there like an assessment? Is there an online evaluation, or is it a phone call where they would sit down with you and do an initial?
Yeah. So
How do they get started?
a couple different options. It depends kind of on the person and what they're looking for, but the best way to reach us is successwithoutsacrificecoaching.com.
Okay.
And that will direct you wherever you need to go. You can also find me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. You can send me a direct message. That's how most people reach out to me, is just simple through Facebook, and then we'll
Spell your name, because that's not
Yeah.
easy for everybody to spell.
So it's Cheree Sauer, Sauer.
Okay.
Yeah, like sweet and sour.
Sweet and sour. Very good.
Yeah.
Any last words? Anything I failed to ask?
Oh, anything you say? No, you're a great interviewer. You have fantastic questions. You pull me back when I forget things, so I appreciate that. I would say that if you're like, rest, what is she talking about? I don't have time for rest. That's your clue that you need rest.
We should talk.
Yes, and we should talk. Yeah,
Excellent.
definitely.
Cheree, I appreciate you
Yeah.
taking time.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you found yourself listening to this and thinking to yourself, I'm too busy to stop right now and rest. I'm way too busy in my business right now to spend time with a coach. I don't have time for this stuff. and you're not exactly sure how to delegate the stuff that you keep thinking, if it's going to happen, I got to do it. Those are all really good signs you need help. And there's also signs that you can't do it all on your own. And no matter how hard you try, eventually you're going to be a strawberry soda can splattered all over the place. You're going to blow up. And you might blow up on your family. You might blow up on your business. You might blow up on your customers. And you might blow up at God. None of those are good. Take some time to rest. Find a Sabbath day. Find some worship. And if you need help, there's nothing braver than asking. So do that. Reach out to Cheree Sauer. You can find her on just about all the social media platforms. Connect with her on LinkedIn and get in touch with her organization so you can get some help. Success without sacrifice. It's a pretty good philosophy. I'm J Loren Norris from Storypower TV, or Tell It Like It Is. Have a blessed day.
My name is and I just got done taking J Loren's Storypower Masterclass. It was amazing. I took away so much information. One of the things that I really enjoyed being formally trained in media many years ago is the call to action. I will use that with every speaking engagement, and I'm so grateful that Loren just spoke truth into his teachings, and he is a true professional. And I know this might sound weird, but I've been taking certifications in different classes over the years, and Loren is not boring. I can't even believe I got here at 9, and then the class went by so fast that I was like, it's time to go already? And I was shocked that it was time to go already. So it's an awesome class. You're going to enjoy it, I promise.